Welcome to the world of Nina Bellavoce and her time travel adventures. Each episode highlights a period ghost encounter in New Orleans. This is historical fiction and is copyrighted under the U.S. and international copyright laws.
I've always seen dead people. That movie just made it popular. Hi there, friends. My name is Nina Bellavoce. I love to travel, I love history, and I can see ghosts through time portals. Pretty cool, huh? Well, sort of. A few years back, I had a cousin who died and left me a fortune. He was about 30 years older than me, and he was more of an uncle than a cousin. But we had a blast traveling together because he too was gifted with extrasensory abilities. I knew exactly the minute he passed over. I felt him standing beside me as he touched my long dark hair and clearly said, "Goodbye, honey. It's time for me to go. I love you." I felt the tingle of his spirit move through me, and I cried with happiness that he loved me enough to say goodbye. When his attorney informed me of his passing, my heart ached at the confirmation of the loss of my dear friend and relative. The day after the phone call from the attorney, I received a letter in the mail from Benicio, dated the day before his passing. Soon afterwards, the legal offices coordinated a teleconference with me. I learned Benicio bequeathed me his earthly wealth. As far as I was concerned, he'd already given me the wealth of his wisdom and his love. In his mind, according to the letter I received, the money served as his final gift to me. So in the tragedy of his passing came wealth, as well as anticipation of being with him again on another plane. The muffled loudspeaker woke me with a start from my crooked sleep, and the captain said, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're cleared for landing at Louis B. Armstrong Airport. The temperature in New Orleans is 90 degrees, humidity 95%. We hope you enjoyed your flight, and thank you for flying with us." I took a deep breath. New Orleans in August, a rainforest compared to the Phoenix Desert. The subtropic heat inevitably awaited me when I disembarked from a climate-controlled 737. After securing my luggage and maneuvering around all of the usual aspects of air travel, I hired a taxi to take me to my guest house. The cab driver sped east on I-10 towards the French Quarter. I traveled this route many times before, passing several cemeteries all above ground on either side of the freeway. I noticed the familiar weather-worn marble crypts jutting out from the below sea level foundations like milky white stalagmites. For a brief moment, I remember when seeing the grave markers evoked feelings of mystery and a certain excitement. My next deep breath combined familiarity with anticipation. My taxi pulled up in front of the Blackbeard's Cove on Bourbon Street, and the driver helped me with my bags. The desk clerk smiled at me through his Harry Potter-esque glasses and used his thumbs to readjust his suspenders. His purple striped shirt wrinkled in resistance as he pulled the elastic straps into place. His eyebrows and glasses reminded me for a minute of those plastic Groucho Marx disguises you can buy at any five and dime all year round, and a little strand of black oily hair hung down between his brows. Yet his deep green eyes engaged me. "Checking in?" he asked in a gooey New Orleans tongue. "What's your name, darling?" I knew immediately the charm of this place began right here with him. I read his name tag and replied, "Arthur, I'm Nina Bellavoce. 2 weeks, I believe." He glided behind the counter so gracefully I wondered if he wore roller skates. Then I realized his years of experience behind this marble slab-topped reception desk afforded him comfort and grace in doing a job he clearly enjoyed. Arthur nodded and pursed his lips as he thumbed through index cards on the counter. Finding my reservation, his shoulders went up and down in a sigh of satisfaction as he tapped the 3x5 card on the counter and reached for the paperwork. Josephine's room, I see. Excellent choice. That's one of our most popular rooms. I'm surprised you got it on such short notice. Says here you just made the reservation last month. Well, welcome again to New Orleans. He clicked into the hotel's computerized reservation system, which I thought was kind of odd. He used the antiquated index card method to find me, and then the computer to complete my paperwork. Arthur asked me the typical questions any lodging house would ask, and I gave him my credit card to secure the room. He handed me a heavy brass key dangling from a leather fob imprinted with the Blackbeard's Cove logo. I reached across the counter to take my key. I noticed the well-worn edges of the marble indented ever so slightly, and just for a moment, I got a flash of 100 years of travelers just like me who'd made the same gesture upon checking in. We have an elevator just around that corner. You'll never make the 3 flights of stairs with all that luggage. Here, I'll give you a hand, he said. He spoke and walked around the corner to meet up with me at the edge of the striped chair. He bumped into the frayed chair corner as he and countless guests must have done before. His long, thin index finger pressed the ivory-inspired button and the door chimed. He held the door open with his left foot and then he pivoted around with my luggage. All loaded up, the elevator took us on the slow ascent to the top floor. The door opened, and to my right, I saw the door to my room. The ornate brass plaque to the right of the door read in a lovely cursive scroll, Josephine. The door, itself a lovely mauve color, blended well with the Victorian-style striped pink and white wallpaper, showing its age with yellowed edges too old to be bothered with separating from the drywall. Arthur inserted my room key and opened the door. I turned to Arthur as he began unloading my bags. Is this the only guest room on this floor? The only guest room, oui. There are a few other storage rooms and one small meeting room for staff business. Things will be quiet up here for you. Josephine's room offered me the perfect refuge. The corner balcony in my room overlooked Bourbon and St. Philip Street. I could look down at the nightly revelers if I wanted to, and simply watch the city go by, 3 floors below me. The top floor also sequestered me from the bustle of a lobby of curious onlookers to a haunted local inn, and provided me with the solitude and silence I needed to rest and regroup. As Arthur placed my luggage on the folding racks in the room and in the closet, I sat into the goose-down outfitted bed and whispered, Strange, have I been here before? A lot of people say that, Miss Bellavoce, he acknowledged. Often I'd mistake feelings of replay for instant or phantom memories. The instant I crossed the threshold, Josephine's room emanated a certain aura of New Orleans' old-world charm, as well as the trappings of a much-visited and beloved place. It felt good and right to be here. After settling in, I changed from my travel clothes and decided to wander around the quarter to select a restaurant for dinner. I threw on some baggy jeans and a t-shirt and stuffed a few dollars into my pocket along with my room key. I hurried down 3 flights of stairs to the lobby and said, See you later, to Arthur. He responded, Laissez les bon temps rouler, dryly and almost inaudibly, and didn't even look up from reading his engrossing novel. I discovered the Clover Grill on my last trip, and it quickly slid into first place as my favorite greasy spoon restaurant in the quarter. At the Bourbon Street location, I could barely see through the combination of condensation and grease accumulated on the front window. I took a seat at a wobbly table that didn't rate quite beyond sticky, and fruitlessly tried to wipe the layer of oil and humidity off the tabletop with a wafer-thin napkin I tore out of the dispenser. But the memories of great food rendered this irrelevant. Grunge can sure be charming. The mostly male waiters at the Clover Grill sing to customers, mostly forgotten show tunes, and they sashay across the grease-covered floors to deliver your equally oily meal. There's nothing like a salty dish to guard you from the oppressive heat and humidity. My burger oozed with juice and the bread was soaked before it even arrived at my table. The fries arrived as a perfect crinkles of deep-fried starch, affectionately seasoned. I tasted the remnants of the oil used to deep-fry chicken and anything else in my pommes frites. After all, the grill boasted, "We love to fry, and it shows." I found heaven again on Bourbon Street. I probably used a dozen of the little trifold napkins just to keep my fingers dry. My drink glass quickly captured my slick fingerprints, and the smudges caught the light in an odd and translucent way. I looked up from my meal, and on the side of the front window, I saw someone peering in. He looked young, about 18, and his hair was tousled and dark. He stood there looking at me. He wore a torn, almost shredded blue chambray shirt, and his pants were held up by a belt, not quite making its way through each of the loops in his pants. He didn't move. I thought he must be hungry and considered inviting him in to share half of my burger, but decided against it. Instead, I chose to offer him a few bucks to buy his own dinner if he was still out there when I finished. I took a $5 bill out of my pants pocket and put it aside so I wouldn't forget. He paced back and forth outside the window while I ate. When my waiter brought my tab, I asked about the young man. "Do you see that young man outside? He's been pacing for quite a while now." "Oh, him again," came the response as he looked towards the front of the diner. "That's William. We see him from time to time. He don't mean no harm. Don't you worry about a thing. He'll be gone before you know it." I looked at my bill, calculated the tip, and left it beneath a slippery glass. I slid on the floor as I walked to the counter to pay my tab. The delightful male diva gleefully took my money as the heavy burger and fries in my stomach filled me completely. Airplane travel always makes me hungry. I reached for the slick brass doorknob and had to get some traction to turn it to open the glass front door. The air conditioner blew right above my head from the transom, and I knew it would be the last blast of cold air for a while, so I made certain to appreciate it. Bourbon Street came to life after sunset, much like those famous vampire tales set in this city suggest. I began to walk towards the crowd and paid attention to the lovely eclectic architecture that gave New Orleans its charm. The eclectic mix of French and Spanish influence made you feel somewhat uneasy with its asynchronous construction. The layout of the quarter results from early residents who wanted yards in the back of the property for privacy and not in the front. Hence, the structures arose from the sidewalk and the grassy areas reverted to the back. Houses grew up very close together, leaving narrow alleys between them. Built for access to the courtyards behind the houses and buildings, these long alleys today accommodate trash storage, but some are maintained for apartment access and utility easements. I looked ahead and saw that young man from the diner step out from one of the alleys. I fingered the ready $5 bill in my pocket. He nodded and quickly matched my stride as he walked alongside me past a few storefronts. I found it odd I felt no discomfort and waited for him to speak. After passing a few uneven door stoops, he finally said, "You're going to meet my sister tomorrow. Tell her I'm sorry." His voice, soft and deep, rang hollow yet clear. "Who's your sister, and when am I going to meet her?" I asked, adding, "And why?" "You'll know," said the young man. We passed a few more buildings in silence, and I turned up to look at him, hoping to memorize some facial features to identify a family resemblance. In the instant my eyes shifted from watching both of our shoes match step for step on the wobbly sidewalk to looking upward to see his face, he vanished. I knew he was there. I heard him. I saw him. I felt him. Heck, I even smelled him. He smelled of stale hay and old leather. When I spun around to look for him, the only people I noticed were the lily-white northern tourists. You know the type. The people who wear sandals and black socks and Bermuda shorts to try and hide their white skin yearning for a tan. I felt a tingle in my back and immediately recognized what just happened. This young man didn't come to me from the alley. He came to me from another dimension.